Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. It is Monday, November 24th, final week of the season. Notre Dame's Stanford forthcoming. There's a trophy involved there. Tim Priester, I never know what those trophies are called, whether there's a shillelagh of somebody with USC and all those types of things. It's not the old Oaken Bucket, I know that, but I'm joined by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, John Bryce of Football Scoop. Super Bowl week for Marcus Freeman and the Fighting Irish going into Stanford. Notre Dame is a 32 and a half point favorite, and they will have to cover that spread without Tay Johnson, who, as we knew, would be out this week with a left hand injury after having surgery. And Kingston Viliamuasa, of course, the news went all over Irish message boards and fan bases over the last 36 hours. That's an unfortunate one. We're gonna talk a lot about KVA in segment two, but quickly we have to touch on it now. Tim, that's a ascending top tier player for Notre Dame to lose at the end of the year.
Oh my God. I mean, I felt like he was playing as well as I felt like, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast, he, as much as anybody on that defense, pre-snap has to be accounted for. Whether he's on the line of scrimmage or a linebacker, generally when he was on the line of scrimmage off the edge, you better account for him, even if he's coming up the middle. Horrible loss for Notre Dame. Obviously should not matter this weekend, but if your aspirations are to win a national title, which they are, that's a significant blow. Now, fortunately, you've got guys like, Jay Nosbury that can play more. You have Jalen Sneed, who's been around for a long time and is an explosive player, but those guys aren't Kingston Viliamuasa. So it's a significant blow for Notre Dame in December and January in particular.
Yeah, for me, I think it's you don't feel it this week. I don't think you feel it enough that it gives you concern. And pending matchups, you wouldn't necessarily feel it overwhelmingly in the opening round of the playoffs. But KVA has proved he's a 5-star. He was a consensus 5-star, and the analysts didn't miss on him. He was 5-star and has quickly proved he was deserving of that 5-star ranking, and he's a difference maker. KVA is the type of guy that if you saw him in a Notre Dame uniform, you'd be like, that's what Notre Dame guys look like now on defense, that Marcus Freeman is in charge of things. If you saw him in a Penn State uniform or a Georgia uniform or Ohio State, you would say, yeah, he looks like one of those guys as well. So Marcus Freeman has done a good job of getting more players to Notre Dame that look like some of those we've talked about. KVA is one of those guys that could play for any program in the country.
Yeah, I do think no matter who they play in the first round, they'll feel that from KVA this year. I guess I should point out he didn't play in the first round last year. He didn't play the first two rounds last year, but he's a different player than obviously he was at that point last year. Johnson, we expect back for the playoff. Jalen Stroman could not have played better. We'll get to
Oh
him
my
when we talk about
goodness.
the Syracuse game. My goodness, let's just jump into Syracuse actually instead of going to the Marcus Freeman press conference. Tim, I mean, everyone has said it. You've written it or said it, and both Marcus Freeman said it. No one's been part of a game like that. You're just not around three consecutive non-offensive touchdowns to start a game. They've had so many. There was a lot of fun tweets going around. Mine, if I tried to take a jab at Notre Dame, had not collected a first down yet after four changes of possession, and there was so many things that were amazing about it. The punt block by Stroman, though, I know his interception touchdown set the tone for, look, Notre Dame's not going to lose this game, but when they blocked the punt, you just thought, oh, this is about to go. This is about to get nuts.
Yeah, Stroman was outstanding. I mean, like the first,
You can
I
take
don't know
those
what,
two plays away, and he was outstanding.
yeah, I mean, the first 12 or 15 snaps by the opposition, you had to account for him in 10 of them.
Yeah.
He was incredible. He was absolutely motivated. Marcus Freeman talked about him today. He was absolutely motivated by family, etc. He was great. And then, I mean, you put a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, and he throws it right at Leonard Moore. JB and I'm sure, it was all covered in instant analysis as well, but JB and I were on overtime together after the game, and the 80 plays to 39 is ridiculous. The nearly 3-1 time of possession those are just outrageous numbers. To be up 21-0 before the offense has even been on the field, to win a game, to score 70 points when, you don't even have 400 yards total offense. You don't even have 100 yards passing offense. It's pretty outrageous, and it takes a really unusual set of circumstances, which all unfolded before our very eyes on Saturday, very, very quickly.
And Jeremiah Love's personal highlight reel got a little bigger. That's nice. And if you don't think it matters, it made a huge difference. He was way out of the Heisman race in terms of Vegas odds, and now he's up to number three in those odds. I do think, I mean, he's the best player in the country, but I think it's going to hurt him a little bit that he doesn't play on a weekend when Mendoza and Sayin will be facing off against each other for the Big Ten championship. Now, if those two defenses rise up,
Yeah.
that does help Jeremiah Love. Um, that weekend never really helps Notre Dame. Last year they were totally safe and they could sit there and watch, and it all just came down to some seeding this time. Could be a little angst, but JB, are we going to get to what's at stake in the written form this week, or maybe at the end of this podcast? You let me know, because we'll written form. I thought Monday was a little early for what's at stake. I don't know if we had steak bites necessarily, maybe coming out today, a little appetizer, but yeah, JB will have that in his staff picks. We'll add
the snackatizer would be cheer like hell for Texas Tech to continue dominating the Big 12, and most importantly, cheer like hell for Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship, and carnage following suit elsewhere, anywhere in Big 12 environs, which, as we know, stretches almost coast to coast these days.
We should mention that Chance Tucker also had a season-ending, I believe, broken tibia. That's unfortunate for him, and it was in his fifth year. Marcus Freeman kind of mentioned, he's a guy that stuck it out to, he had a torn ACL prior to miss a previous season, and now obviously has a, kind of a career decision to make, because he could go play somewhere else as a six-year player, and maybe that's tough for Tucker. He was the one guy from that class that made it through. Although Ryan Barnes graduated from Notre Dame and transferred early, but Chance Tucker is part of the last class that Mike Mickens ever recruited that did not have absolutely dynamic All-American corners. Tim Priester. that was not the same thing. Philip Riley, Ryan Barnes, and Chance Tucker, and JoJo whatever, who got kicked out of school. Those were not the same thing.
No, but he made up ground very quickly. Let's put it that way.
He really did. I wanted to start our Stanford preview a little bit, guys, and we'll get to Marcus Freeman's presser notes too, but I think we kind of covered that in instant analysis. This is a great question from someone Tim Priester, Kay Garrity. Are your views of Stanford and the state of their program different than earlier this year? Where would you rank them in comparison to Purdue, Red Purdue, and Orange Purdue, which is a fantastic line by him for Syracuse? They're different for me. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, it's interesting that we have that question, because I actually had not seen that before I asked Marcus Freeman today about, Stanford, like he said, statistically they're better. I'm not sure. I haven't completely delved into it. I didn't think that there was that much of a statistical difference. So I asked him, consider beyond the stats, and they've won 4 games, which they haven't done since 2020. With a big win over Cal. I mean, that's a massive. They had a 4-game losing streak in the big game, which is huge in Northern California, and they ended up whipping them pretty good. And so I wondered is there something beyond some of the stats that sets them apart now, because they do have a head coach that was an NFL quarterback that had some success as an NFL head coach, and then Andrew Luck, who's not your typical general manager. He's got a lot invested in it. And I just wondered if there's something he had spotted beyond, some of the stats. And he said, you can obviously tell they're a very well-coached team. And the little that I've seen up to this point, I would agree with that. I think we can, this was back in the spring. We knew that Stanford had one of the best secondaries on Notre Dame's schedule. And that's a productive group. You can see it on film. You can see it in their stats. So this is an improved team. Not so much that the point spread's any lower than 32.5, which my initial reaction to that is take the points. Not that Notre Dame's going to be in a dogfight or anything, but 32.5, I think, I think Stanford's going to be feeling good enough about itself, especially coming off the big win against Cal. And some of the things that they've done along the way. There's some bad losses in there. There's no doubt about that. But they're a better football team. Notre Dame needs to be ready to play. And fortunately, they're playing in a venue where they're not going to get any help from the home crowd. So
unfortunately for Stanford.
Yeah, unfortunately for them. So I don't know. I want to spend the next couple days looking a little bit more closely at them. But I always thought that their secondary was pretty damn good, and I think it still shows itself that way. Generally speaking, they're good against the run. They're 3.6 yards per carry. That's one of their stats that is generally held true as they've kind of struggled and fallen off. They haven't kind of struggled. They've fallen off a large amount. So let's put it this way: this is the best team of the last group. Well,
Pittsburgh's the best team of the last group.
Pittsburgh's the best of the last group, but I was like thinking, throughout November, other than Pittsburgh, it's definitely better than anything that they saw this past weekend.
I think Navy's better than Stanford too, but I know what you're saying. They're better than Boston College and Syracuse. They're a lot better than Syracuse. They're the 58th ranked.
Yeah, I mean, I look at a guy I think we're saying better in a couple different ways here. Actually, it's semantics. I look at a guy like not that Michael Ford is better than Desmond Reed, but Desmond Reed was hurt. Michael Ford's 6'2", 220. He'd be a nice second or third option at Notre Dame next year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just think that touched on this in instant analysis. I am impressed with the job that the Stanford coaching staff has done this year, because that is an overall quite bare cupboard. And let's remember that Cal had won a number of games in a row in that series, and Cal hasn't been just left for dead this season. And Cal also, leading into the game last week, had gotten a reaffirmation or a recommitment from its savior quarterback, Sagapola Tele, that he was returning next year no matter what. Cal went around and laid an absolute egg against the Golden Bear against Stanford, and got Justin Wilcox fired yesterday. Stanford defense held them to 0.5 yards per carry. Now, Cal abandoned the run pretty early, but 12 rushing attempts for 0.5 yards per attempt is pretty dreadful.
Weren't you surprised? I mean, we had an interaction with each other, sending texts back and forth. I mean, Wilcox done a pretty good job. I realize that they fell off here in the second half of the season. My question is, what are the expectations for Cal? 8-4, 9-3? Is that realistic? Somebody else in the league has to really fall off to compensate for the wins and losses, because, as I always say at the end of a conference here, you add up the wins and losses, they're exactly the same.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, the loss to Stanford was one that Cal, I don't think, has too many people that care a great deal about football, but they care about that game. And Stanford with an interim coach, and Stanford behind the scenes feels like it has some real legitimate momentum with Andrew Luck. It's attracted some decent candidates for this coaching position. Andrew Luck is telling people very emphatically in this process, especially over the past month, that they've got NIL fixed, that they've gotten some more ground there, that they're going to do some big things in NIL. Of course, they got the largest single gift ever in the history of the program dedicated to football earlier this year. So they're certainly using that. But Cal was non-competitive in a 34-0 loss to San Diego State, and then it was largely non-competitive in this loss to Stanford. And I think at the end of the day, those are the two things that doomed Justin Wilcox more than anything.
Not on the Notre Dame search list, Justin Wilcox. I think we can all wrap up our Cal talk on that one with no Justin Wilcox coming to the Irish. Before we wrap up segment one, that was a lot of Cal. Before we wrap up segment one,
a lot of Cal.
That's some stuff going there.
Come for Irish Illustrated, stay for everything.
Yeah. Lost my train of thought on that one. But I thought it was interesting. Marcus Freeman, my takeaway from his press conference was, first of all, how much he lit up when he said the word team, which was pretty good for team glory. But number two is he admitted they had some perfectly ranked I'm saying that, perfectly graded players. And actually, JB and Pete Sampson both kind of asked about that. Do you guys remember who he said? Leonard Moore, Anthony Knapp. He said, I assume Stroman.
Stroman, yeah. I think the big thing he said was, didn't they have maybe like 14 total or something over overall, or I'm trying to remember, but it was definitely Leonard Moore, it was definitely Anthony Knapp, and it was definitely Stroman, who all had who graded perfectly in Saturday's game review.
That's a heck of a thing. You don't get a lot of perfect grades. You probably don't get a lot in a in one game in that situation. But if you're going to have it, if you don't have perfect grades from that game, Tim Priester, you don't have perfect grades. There's no way
Well,
you can say
yeah,
we've graded a guy perfectly and not have one from that game.
I know we do have a question in second segment about an area that's really been lacking.
Oh, good. All right. I'm really happy to get to it. Before that, though, segment one was brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and its various exhibition halls, the campus is open to the public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus, so no reservation is required. Whether you're looking to learn more about the history of recreational vehicles in the Kinlan Library or simply a cost effective, interesting place to stay on your family road trip, the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. We'll be back with more California talk in segment two, Burning Up the Boards. With football season in full swing, I've been looking to find the best deal on Notre Dame tickets, both for family and friends, but also as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's Burning Up the Boards, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket to the AC/DC concert next September or any of college football's upcoming playoff games down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. But every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capital letters in the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with promo code Irish10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. First question of segment two, Burning Up the Boards, is a double question. Let's start with you, JB, since you were in that room. Irish guy 8282, does Miami playing an FCS team hurt them in the standings? Or in the rankings, I assume he means. And CJ Healy, would the committee weigh the fact that ND lost their second best defensive player when making a ranking? How much of a blow is this to Notre Dame's chances in terms of its playoff run?
Miami playing an FCS team does hurt them in the standings because it counts against strength of schedule, and obviously you get no bump from that. I think I noted last week on the podcast at that time of the top 13, Notre Dame was the only one of the top 13 that had not played or was not playing an FCS team this year. Certainly, Notre Dame's strength of schedule was boosted by what Pitt did on Saturday night, and again, boosted by the fact that I believe it's only played like one FCS team ever, and that was a special occasion to play Tennessee State a couple of years ago. I don't think that Notre Dame losing Kingston Viliamu is something that's going to impact the way that the committee views the Irish. Notre Dame was too dominant and played whatever the last 2.5 quarters of that game without KVA. It's not like losing CJ Carr or Jeremiah Love. The committee would absolutely make those considerations, has in the past. And then when we did the mock, we discussed that as well with some of the teams from last year's field. So a blow like that would be factored. A blow like a KVA or even an Eli Raridan, knock on whatever you want to knock on, those things would not really resonate with the committee.
Boy, if the committee had to take into consideration every significant injury to significant players, it would be a bigger mess than it already is. And as it relates to the first question, JB was there, of course, and knows better than all of us. But the way Miami's been ranked since it started 3 weeks ago, everything's working against Miami with their ranking, obviously, and certainly playing an FCS team, which is, I mean, you just think about it. It's just unnecessary.
Well, it
Unless
is.
you can't fight, unless you just can't flat find a power or a group of five team that's willing to play you. It's just unnecessary.
Well, it is, especially because the ACC, much like the SEC until this year, has been 8 league games only. So you don't need to You can't justify saying, well, we play 9 conference games and Florida every single year because they haven't done that. And that's why we schedule one FCS opponent. But the fact of the matter is, ADs went to a permanent 12-game schedule, whatever it was, 20 years ago. And that was a discussion for another day because that's about Title IX and filling out resources for sports that don't really pay their own bills. So that's why so many teams play an FCS game, is because they were the ADs and school presidents mandated that the revenue had to come from somewhere. They voted to add a 12th game. The playoffs weren't what they are now or what they may become in the future. And so that's why we've seen some of that terrible scheduling. And then the FCS teams have to have those games to fund not only their football program, but tons of other budgets as well.
JB, I want to ask you, FCS game hurting them so technically in the metrics, does it hurt them more than team ranked number 135 Georgia State, who's FBS?
Yeah, I think it does.
It does. Okay, that's good to know that the FBS.
That was my understanding. Like, because there's some of those formulas that you basically lose even having any criteria from that game entered into your metrics.
Okay, that's good. That's really the only way to make sure that it penalizes you, is if it isn't just like, oh, they played an FCS team, but you played Georgia State. So that's good that they're separated from that. That's worth noting. Next question from Manatee. List the defense. This is all about KVA. It's 3 in a row, guys. We'll go one by one. List the defensive players that are least replaceable and stop when you get to Kingston Viliamu-Asa. I'll start. Leonard Moore.
I think that's where we would probably all start.
Boubacar Traore for positional purposes, and then Kingston Viliamu-Asa would be mine, because you have backups that are better than Boubacar's.
I would say Leonard Moore, and then Boubacar Traore, and then I think my third would have been either of this, Don Schuler or Tay Johnson. Like the way they're playing right now, KVA, it sucks, and you just heard me gushing about him, and he's a flat out difference maker. But there's other really damn good players at the linebacker position for Notre Dame. If you lose Tay Johnson or a Don Schuler for an extended period of time, and people know, like, I like Luke Talich a lot. I love the way he plays the game. Stroman just played the game of his life. It's just different because Don Schuler and Tay Johnson are absolute NFL players.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And, it's a really good question because, rating these guys, I mean, KVA is right there in the top. I think we all would list Leonard Moore first, right? Then it's KVA right there. I agree about Schuler.
I think there's an argument.
Devontae Smith, the way Devontae Smith has been playing recently, they can't afford not to have him at nickel. Drake, I'd make an argument for Drake Bowen. Is that who you were going to say?
Well, no, I mean, Drake Bowen, I almost made that in my initial argument. I would say where things are right now, by the time you get to that third or fourth person, there's a compelling argument for Jason Onye because you're already right now without Gabriel Rubio, because you already just had Donovan Heinisch miss a game for concussion, because you already are just being honest that defensive tackle is the weakest position on your team other than place kicker right now. So I think that's why Jason Onye enters the conversation, in that his value to this team would be more than his value on a mock draft board, if that makes sense.
Career high 7 tackles.
Yeah.
I would not put Bowen over KVA though.
No, I wouldn't either. I'm just I'm not trying to rank. I'm thinking of, all right, who's playing?
They need a lot. They need Christian Gray too. They need Christian Gray to be out there.
Absolutely. And I think, I just keep coming back to Drake Bowen, his leadership since the Purdue game. When we sat down with him, it was, you could feel it in the room how important his leadership was to this team. I think he's playing like that. Sometimes we get a little too caught up in ranking. I don't know. All I know is that if you're going to do something great in the playoffs, Drake Bowen's at the forefront of it defensively for you. Not necessarily 1-2. I don't know. I'm just saying that his leadership has been absolutely outstanding the last 75% of this season.
Next part of this question from T-Row 1989. Who takes KVA's snaps, and what is the linebacker rotation for the playoffs?
Yeah, that's kind of what I asked Marcus about today, because we've seen Madden Faramo performing so much better down the stretch. Well, which is understandable. The more he plays, the better he gets. That's a lot of players, but we're starting to see some of his raw abilities marry up with an increased knowledge and comfort in the defense. But I mean, look, it's Bowen, Osbury, and Sneed. 1, 2, 3. Madden will be the four, and then there's a significant drop where you hope that if Notre
None.
Dame
There's
is
none.
playing, yeah, if Notre Dame is playing a fifth linebacker, probably Kahanu Kia. Marcus struggled to remember a name beyond that today, but that's in emergency situations, or that's in, oh look, Notre Dame somehow scored 28 points again with 2 offensive snaps. Who are we playing today?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I've always been high on Preston Zinner, but I was really impressed with the way, frankly, the way both Kias played on coverage teams. And Kahanu Kia plays, he plays fast, man. He plays fast. I
Yeah,
thought he
I'm not
really
saying he
stood
wouldn't
out.
do well. I'm just saying he won't be elevated. They're not going to elevate him to play. He's going to
No, I
watch
agree.
until they
No,
need him.
I agree. I
If he's
agree.
pressed into action, I agree with you guys that
The
Kahana
one
Kia
that's
could do
elevated
well.
is Faremo. That's
Yes.
who's elevated.
Now, the interesting part about this, though, is like Osbury plays a lot anyway. Just very quickly so people know, Bowen has the most snaps, 534. Easily, Kingston Vialama Asa is next at 435. I'm sorry, 534 for Bowen. I didn't say that right. 435, so almost 100 less for Kingston. 380 for Osbury and 274 for Sneed. But 150 of Viliamu Asa's snaps were on the defensive edge. That is not Jaden Osbury. That is not Madden Faremo.
No, definitely not. And that part, that I think I said that right from the beginning. That part is not replaceable. He is arguably their best pass rusher, right up there with Traore in a different way. Yeah, it's a massive loss. It's 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 difficult enough to envision a national title as it is for most teams. Try envisioning it without KVA.
Next question from Martin Evenflow. Three-part Thanksgiving question edition, and as Jack Freeman pointed out, the creativity got him into this podcast. Congratulations. The appetizer. How does Notre Dame manage winning and keeping everybody healthy? He means Sunday, or Saturday, excuse me. Well, Sunday for many people. Sunday is part of half the game. Entree. What does Jeremiah Love need to do to possibly make him the Heisman winner? And the dessert. If this is the last of the West Coast trips, what was your favorite West Coast trip memory? TP, appetizer. How do you stay healthy, manage things? Not easy considering what just happened.
No, you play. You can't. How do you manage? Well, manage winning, keeping everyone healthy. If there are opportunities as the game progresses to be a little bit more aggressively taking frontline players out, you go ahead and do it. I don't think that's Marcus Freeman. I don't think that he looks at a football game that way. I think to him it's more important that they play well. I don't know. You tell me how they manage it. I think they go out and play football against Stanford.
Yeah. I mean, look, how you manage it is you bottle up what you did Saturday to Syracuse. You take it cross country on that flight to Palo Alto and you unleash it in the first half against the Cardinal so that you do get to substitute liberally
like you did this past week. Yeah.
throughout the second half of that game. I will note, and not that they get a lot of rain in that region anyway, but the early forecast is great for Saturday in Stanford. Sunny during the day with a high up near 60. Not really much chance of precipitation. Sometimes late in the year, I've seen that Stanford field be really chewed up. And so, in that regard, if you're Notre Dame, you're glad that it looks like it should be a dry track. And you'll have a chance to have Jeremiah Love and your skill players on both sides of the ball at their fastest.
What's your appetizer there, T.O.?
You can't take the offensive line out, a lineman out, because that ruins everything offensively. So that's usually a wholesale five-man swing. I'd manage Eli Raridon's snaps a little bit once you have a 3 touchdown lead. I would manage Jeremiah Love's snaps too. They can't beat anybody. They won't beat anybody in the playoff game if Jeremiah Love is like he was last year. They won't win a playoff game.
You're kind of caught between that and the whole Heisman
Yeah,
hype
so
that's going on.
the second part of the entree, how does you need him to win the Heisman? He needs to be out of the game like he did against Stanford. 12 carries this time, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns, one leaping touchdown over something. 12 carries, 132 yards, breaks the Notre Dame record. Exactly 132 yards. Breaks the
Yep.
Notre Dame record. Under 200 carries. That's incredible. Leaping touchdown, other touchdown. That's how you get him out of this game.
Yeah, I'm thinking like everybody's accustomed to handing him the ball and he runs away from everybody. I mean, the whole country's seen that over and over again.
Yeah.
A receiving,
Another one.
like
Yeah.
maybe two receiving touchdowns. I don't know exactly if they have something dialed up that's different from what they've done, but maybe something just a little bit different to put them on display in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, look, he can uncork a 75-yard run when Notre Dame starts a drive, 1st and 10 at the 25 after a kickoff on a touchback or something like that. And then hopefully your defense gets a stop if you're Notre Dame. And then you let Jeremiah Love maybe have one of those Malachi Fields type post connections with CJ Carr. And then you're up 14-0 at that point. You feel in game control, and you might not have to use Jeremiah Love very much at all anymore in that game whatsoever. So that to me is what you do with number two.
The dessert. If this is indeed your last West Coast trip, what is your favorite memory of West Coast trips? Pretty sure you've had a few West Coast trips.
Oh my God, I've had more than 20 in the Coliseum. I'm not gonna reminisce too much here. I go back to '86 when it looked like Notre Dame was going to lose again, and they used Tim Brown and special teams to win it. I can remember riding on the elevator with Mike Stock. Remember that name, Tim?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Mike Stock, who's a dedicated Notre Dame coach. So many winning and maintaining undefeated seasons and winning at in the Coliseum to go into the postseason undefeated. I guess most of the big memories, the pleasant memories, are in Southern California as opposed to Northern California because there's not as much stake for
They
at
haven't had
stake
a.
for the Stanford fans.
Interestingly enough, though, you're right, though, because 88, 12, 18, and 24, all the postseasons were all
Yeah.
at USC.
Yeah.
Just happens to be that way.
Yep.
I guess
Yep.
they had a chance in 15, but Conrad Ukropina took care of that. So that was a bit. JB, we have what we think is news, however, on why this dessert is not necessary.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Not as certain a news as the last time we came with news to this podcast. I would like to point that out, though, right?
yeah, but feeling pretty good about it. Well,
Yeah.
I would like to point out I won't be making the trip this week, but that just means we'll get you Overtime Live as early as it makes sense for you all to consume it. So that's a good thing. And then I haven't done as many West Coast.
Sunday, we want to point out so people are understanding that Sunday
Yeah,
overtime live.
probably. Yeah.
You don't have to stay up
Well,
until
yeah.
3 in the morning. Yes,
Yeah,
we will not.
exactly. But we'd like to think that people would set their alarms to stay up for us.
Of course they will.
West Coast trips, I've done a game in the Rose Bowl was great. Done a game at Oregon was great. Did last year at the Coliseum was great. One of the best things about last year at Coliseum was dinner in Manhattan Beach, getting to meet also Declan Keneally, who's a fine man and a friend of the program. So that's it for me on the news standpoint, though. Tio and I both are told very emphatically that Notre Dame has reached tentative agreement with USC on a new 2-year deal in that series, and then they will explore trying to work something out beyond that. But that would leave next year Notre Dame expected to go to Los Angeles at the end of the season in the traditional spot, and then a much earlier in the year game against USC in 27.
I think that was the best case scenario under the circumstances, is to extend it 2 years. JB, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah,
That this was not the time where they were going to
Right.
sign something long term. To at least get it to an extension of 2 years is a good step. The next step may be a little bit more complicated. We have a question from Do Your Job 23. Given the struggles last year, -1 play versus Indiana, what's your level of confidence that the running backs can be effective against playoff competition? Tim, what'd you tell me about this or here? Am I supposed to?
Not right now. It's a different question. So
Okay. All right.
I told you we were going to read one of them. All right.
Okay.
But my confidence level is high because Jeremiah Love was not healthy last year during the playoffs after that one run. So it's exceptionally high. If Jeremiah Love's out there, I'm confident in them. I'm not. I don't think they can run again, ever like they did against USC against a playoff team, but I think the passing game can augment the running game. If Jeremiah Love's not healthy, I am not as confident that they would do well in a road playoff game. I think they do find a home playoff game. Road playoff game in Ohio State quarterfinals will get a little tricky without Jeremiah Love. He is healthy, of course. I'm just pointing out that last year he was not, and that's what this question's about. You confident they'd be able to run, JB?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, sorry, I was peeking ahead at the next question or the fourth question if we were doing it or whatever. So I apologize for my distraction here. But look, yeah, I think Notre Dame will run. Stanford is a little bit better defensive line and a better test that I think does Notre Dame a little bit of good because again, we just heard Marcus Freeman say Anthony Knapp graded 100 last week, and well, that's awesome. But that was a
Yeah.
Syracuse. That was a Syracuse team that thankfully Notre Dame gets credit for an FBS win that fielded an FCS roster.
Man,
So that's how I view that one.
it was I just kept watching Syracuse film to find somebody up front that fights off a block and makes a play, and they just do not have a player like that up front for them. And your comment about running against USC, no, they probably won't be able to do that in a playoff game because USC's not a playoff team because their defense sucks whenever it really matters. So
Yeah. Um,
Their
I thought
special teams really sucks at USC, which is two turnovers and then a disastrous punt return, and
yep.
that's why they didn't do Notre Dame any favors. But anyway, back to more Notre Dame content instead of USC and Cal.
Our next question, Irish from A2, and this is a good one. We're actually going to see Aeneas Williams tonight in interviews in the Knock Me Over with a Feather interview opportunity of the week. Is there any way Andy could convince Williams to come back because he could be RB1 next year? Or does Notre Dame maybe not see him as an RB1? Well, it's Jawan Sider is involved in the
Yeah,
RB1.
I mean,
Right. Yeah,
that's a great question to ask Jaywan Sider directly.
yeah.
And maybe we can do that tonight.
Well, no, he won't be there tonight, Jawan Sider. I think Aeneas Williams sees himself as an RB1.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, no, yeah, I meant Sider. You had like you kind of forget like there what he did Saturday, and again, bad opponent, but you just see the strength, and I like he stays square to the line of scrimmage. I like that. He's got power. He's got some pull away speed. Here's the problem. I mean, Notre Dame fans are going to be measuring every carry next year to the two guys they had this year. I mean, you're probably not going to get 48, 68, 72, 49-yard runs on such a regular basis like we've become accustomed to. If he's not a 1, he's a 1A.
But will he come back to Notre Dame as a 1?
Well, we keep speculating about that, and it's like, well, why wouldn't he come back? Well, because I think there's some hard feelings from this year. They used a year of eligibility, and he never really got a chance to play on a regular basis. Now, I think we always have to add the stipulation in there was that he got hurt in August, and it took him a while before he was fully healthy. So how long before he was actually fully healthy? Another question that can be asked of him tonight. I don't, if he's bitter about the way everything transpired this year, he may not want to do it at Notre Dame. If he looks at the opportunity that Notre Dame presents him, he may see it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to say that there's no way Notre Dame could convince him to come back. I think him getting a little extra juice in recent weeks and then turning those opportunities into touchdowns helps both sides evaluate this situation. It was told to me over the weekend that, quite frankly, this will probably have to do a lot with what is offered, both in-house and out of house, if Aeneas Williams decides to enter the transfer portal. And a lot of those conversations can unofficially take place before he enters the portal, and he'll know. There are conversations taking place around ball right now, especially with FCS kids already declaring that they're going into the portal. So those conversations are already taking place. I wouldn't say it's an impossible, but I'll tell you what somebody in the program told me over the weekend: coin flip.
I would have gone way heavy on the other side of the coin flip if he wasn't coming out to talk to us this weekend. I can't believe he's coming to talk. That means he's not absolutely bolting. It does. If he was absolutely bolting, he would not be. There's no reason to come out to talk. He's the third running back.
Do you know Aeneas Williams well enough to come to that conclusion?
What do you mean? I
That
know Aeneas Williams wanted to bolt after week 4. Are you asking?
No,
that?
I understand, but you're saying there's no way he'd come out if he was.
Yeah, they would.
If he
Notre
was
Dame
going to
wouldn't
bolt.
put Aeneas Williams out if they knew he was leaving the Scott
Okay. Oh,
program.
you're from
I
Notre
know them well
from
enough
Notre from Notre Dame's perspective.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking
100%
from
from Notre Dame's perspective, not from Aeneas Williams'
from
perspective.
his perspective. I will say this, and this is just take it for what it's worth. It's what I do every week with Tail of the Tape, and I don't think I put it in. It was inadvertent. It's just an observation. Nolan James Jr. looked small and played small Saturday. I'm not saying he's not a guy. I know that Notre Dame's very high on him, and I've seen him do, what little we've seen in practice. I've seen him do some really, really good things. I thought Saturday he looked small and played small.
I think
That's
Indy's
all.
in a tough spot because they don't know Keaton Young's health. They're going to lose Price and Love. They do lose Price and Love's money. There's one thing there. They're going to lose Payne. That leaves Aeneas Williams and Nolan James and a potentially healthy Keaton Young. Keaton Young was hurt in early August, right? Yeah, it was during camp, but it was early August. So Keaton Young can play football for Notre Dame next year for sure. Whether can start in September, we don't know at Wisconsin. But I mean, the guy could go play in October and help the team a lot if they have faith in him. So Aeneas Williams or somebody else becomes a very important person. And I mean, the two incoming freshmen are going to be good players, but also you don't necessarily say Osborne starting for you against Wisconsin. Like, that's different than Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. So you have a conversation where you have to convince and trust Aeneas Williams to come back because he is your best running back coming back. Jabron Payne is going to be done. He's going to graduate and go. Jadarian Price is going pro. And Jeremiah Love is the only guy that has maybe said he's not going pro. But I have a feeling Jeremiah Love's going to go pro, Tim Priester. It just seems like he might. So
Yeah, I think that's more certain than Jadarian Price, but Jadarian Price is
Price is going
pro.
pro. Price is telling everyone he's going pro.
I understand. I understand.
I think we're just kind of pie in the sky on the Jadarian Price thing. But JB, Price, Payne, most likely, I would think. Price would be RB1. Payne wouldn't be RB1.
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, Williams, I think is why it's still open-ended. It's too early to declare that there's no way he returns.
He could have a fairly sizable NIL deal to return to Notre Dame at this point, actually, when you look at it from the perspective that I just mentioned. From Jay Marasco, the obvious answer to this question is going to be playing at home is always better. He's right. But if ND were to play a first game at Oklahoma or Oregon, is there an advantage to playing on the road where there's an us versus the world mentality, less distractions at home? Seems like Freeman and ND have handled road environments very well.
I feel pretty strongly about this one because I've touched on some of these metrics in recent weeks, and I noted at the beginning of the season that after I jokingly asked Marcus Freeman if he had pissed off Jack Swarbrick or Pete Bavacqua because he never gets to open the season at home, and Notre Dame was one of the only programs out there with a 5th consecutive season opener away from home. But in those more recent metrics, I've also discovered Marcus Freeman has a chance to improve to 22-6 away from home since the start of the 2002 season. So since officially becoming Notre Dame's full-time head coach and starting his first full season, Marcus Freeman has led Notre Dame to a 21-6 record everywhere other than Notre Dame Stadium. This is a chance to make it 22-6. In that entire same time frame, the only person better than Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame is Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. They're 24-4, and they won a national championship during that span. So there you have it. I do think there is something to that. I might get roasted on here. I do think Oklahoma presents a much more significant home field advantage than does Oregon. And I've been to both places. I've been on the field at both places. I know what everybody says. Oklahoma has real, legit, crazy town football fans. They're super nice. They're some of the nicest fans anywhere. But that, to me, is a more daunting road environment than Austin Stadium.
Yeah. Been to Oklahoma, been to Norman, haven't been to Eugene, but not for a football game. I feel Notre Dame's better than both of those teams. I believe that pretty strongly. The one time we were in Oklahoma, Notre Dame handled them. I realize that it's not the same situation or setting. So I'm not answering the question. I'm giving some other thoughts as to I think Notre Dame's better than both of those teams and can beat them in either venue.
I'm going to answer it, and I think Notre Dame is better at home because they are very good at home now. Notre Dame's, I agree that the us against the world mentality is good. I think Notre Dame can go on the road and win a game in the playoff. But Notre Dame at home, I would bet a healthy amount of money, no matter who comes in here. Notre Dame handles them in a home.
I agree. I mean, nothing's better than playing in Notre Dame Stadium, especially with the momentum that they've now built up in that venue, which hasn't always been the case.
No, but Notre Dame lost at home already this year to Texas A&M. It lost at home last year to Northern Illinois. It lost at home to Marshall and Stanford early on. So I know, I get it, but I do
think
think
those four have nothing to do with it, though. A&M is the only one.
I hear what you're saying, JB, but I agree with Tim on that. I don't think.
Yeah, and
I don't even think Northern Illinois is a factor in this anymore. I understand at the time it was.
Right. Well, it set the stage that they had to play a bunch of must-win games, which they proved really good at. And that's why I think this team is kind of like Bane in the Dark Man in the Batman series when he's like, "You merely adopted the darkness. I was born in it." Well, this team has had to play its way out of the darkness a hell of a lot the last 2 seasons, and they've proved they're pretty freaking good at it. So, of course, you would rather have a game at home, but I do think this team rallies around Marcus Freeman. We saw the way that Marcus Freeman was in the tunnel last year at Texas A&M when he was more demonstrative than ever. And then he told us after the fact, "Yeah, I sensed what this was, and I was loud in the tunnel, and I wanted that put on me." And I think players respond to that.
All right, so in a neutral field, is Notre Dame better than Oklahoma?
Yes.
Is Notre Dame better than Oregon?
Yes.
Okay, well, they're not going to play on.
Not going to get either one.
They're not going to play a neutral field.
I don't know what they're doing here, but
I think they are. I think they are. Yeah. Now, look, give Oregon credit for putting.
That'd be awesome to get both those teams in a neutral field this January because it's not happening, but it would be wonderful. Your neutral field opponents are not those two.
I totally get that. But I mean, I guess I'm kind of tying in a bunch of thoughts here, including what JB's saying that I think Notre Dame can go on the road and win in those 2 venues. I do.
I agree. I think
they're probably going to have to. Well, I mean, to me, at this point, that's a given. I mean, if I think they could beat them on the road, of course, I would think they could beat them in Notre Dame Stadium. I held back on some information here. Oh well, you know what?
Yeah, you got to tell us.
Now I got to ask a question. Okay, from W Kyle 1, does Jeremiah Love break the rushing record versus Stanford? Love needs 131 yards to actually tie it, 132 to break the record.
I'll say yes. Yes.
Yeah, I say yes too. Does he tie Jerome Bettis's real touchdown record with 3?
I'll say no.
Yeah, I'm going to say no because it's going to be harder to run the football in the end zone against Stanford, certainly, than it was Syracuse and some others. By the way, no Stanford individual opponent has rushed for 131 yards against them this year. Not that has anything to do with.
No, that does. It's got a little to do with it, though. It's got, I mean, that's.
Well, it does have something to do with it, but they haven't faced Jeremiah Love either. So.
No. Yeah, but that's. I mean, that's not an obscene number. It's not like you said no one's running for 199.
No, that was one of the first things I looked up this morning. Was okay. He needs 132. Has anybody done that against Stanford this year? Nobody has. So, for what it's worth.
This question is for Tim Priester and I sitting together at football games and our delicate sensibilities being offended. From Mac APG, when will Notre Dame tighten up its kickoff coverage? What is the average return yards for those kickoffs that are returned? I bet USC, A&M, Miami, and Pitt, it is all over 30. And Priester and I did sit there at the Pitt game. Yes.
Yeah, stop kicking it to the damn kick
return. Why just kick it to the end zone, dude?
You can't. Is that a plan? Is that really the plan with Eric Schmidt to get them to return it? Because don't do that. Kick the damn thing out of the end zone.
I think most of the time, unless you get a bad weather game, when he doesn't kick it in the end zone, he tries to kick it high, they must see something on film but I disagree. I would
I,
kick it into the. I'm with Priester. I would kick
it's
it in
the
the
one
end.
it's the one time that I would disagree with the one time that I would disagree with Marty Biaggi if that's what they're doing. Kick the ball out of the end zone so they start at the 25-yard line.
Against your really
Even
good team.
great coverage teams, maybe not some of Urban Meyer's when they played Notre Dame, but even some of their great coverage teams when Notre Dame couldn't get the ball past the 12.
Yeah, that was different. That was a different world.
I think more that's a couple of them have looked designed or strategic, like Notre Dame was trying
Yeah.
to do something. But I think overwhelmingly it's been more inconsistency than
Oh, that's
anything.
interesting.
And I think that again, these are guys adjusting. Marty Biaggi told us point blank last week they fully anticipated redshirting Eric Schmidt, and now he's kicked whatever 17 PATs in the last 2 weeks and ever how many kickoffs in the last 2 weeks. He's not used to that
Yeah.
volume of work.
Off the top of my head, I was about to say, what's the longest one? And I remember it was called back. It was Terry Bussey's for 99, which
Yes.
would have been great for Notre Dame fans if it held because they would have won the football game by driving down and having plenty of time to win it. There's a 32-yarder by Miami when they kicked off. And the first thing I think we said to each other, Priester, was, why do you kick off to all this speed? Just kick the ball in the end zone against Miami. The pit was like a 37-yarder. And we both thought that's how you let a team get a drive going. You kick it off like that. And there was a 40-yarder recently.
Yeah. And look,
Syracuse had a decent one too.
I've never kicked off in Notre Dame Stadium, so who the hell am I to be making that judgment? But I think that Eric Schmidt, the number one rated kicker coming out of Cole's camp,
It's just that he so often boots eight out of eight out of the end zone when you're watching him play. So I guess we could wrongly be assuming, Tim and I, that those should all go out of the end zone because he plays games where it's not even close. Like the ball's going out of the end zone every
look,
single time.
maybe it probably the margin for error on a kickoff
Yeah.
is very, very slight. And if you just barely miss it, it doesn't go where I'm demanding that it goes. What do I know? What do I know? But
We've
it
kind of
seems
asked
like
Biaggi. I'll ask him again tonight. You've kind of asked him in the past, though, right? Is that strategic? And he's like, can be. I think he doesn't want to give away his strategy, though, right? I
right,
mean, you're not
right.
gonna. That's the
Yeah.
problem there. Yeah. Do you plan to do this strategically every week? And he's not going to tell you what the plan is.
Or are you just pissing me off on purpose? What's going on here?
That's good. All right. Final question. This is a fun one, actually. It's probably a better Wednesday or Thursday question, but JB, I wanted to get you in on this one. All right. From fan XLIV, pick one team you would like to see win and one team you'd like to see lose Saturday for any reason. I usually have a fun one here, and I don't. Go ahead, Go ahead, JB.
I've struggled with this one because
Oh,
this is a fun question, and I give fan 44, I guess that is. No, I don't shit. I don't know my math. Maybe Jack can cut that. But I will say that probably Texas, just because my colleague Zach Barnett at Football Scoop is a Texas guy,
I like
and
it.
he's
Spike.
been predicting a train wreck disaster all year long that Texas was going to be preseason number one and fail to make the playoffs, and we've seen that. And if they fail to ruin Texas A&M's perfect regular season, that's just. And I don't have anything against Texas. There's some great people at Texas,
No, there's
but for
any
those
reason you can
reasons,
always throw out shade. There's any reason you can root against anybody. It's fun. There's
yeah. So, yeah, and I do a lot of podcasts with Zach. So, I'm always eager for ammo. That would be ammo. So that's why I would pick Texas. For any team to win, I'm trying to look at the schedule here. Um, I don't know. I've got a lot of friends and people I respect at Virginia. They've had a pretty magical season. Um, Virginia beating Virginia Tech would be neat for a lot of those people, especially where Tony Elliott has come as a head coach and from that tragedy when they had a former player shoot and kill a couple of players. And then, I'm really torn in the Troy Southern Miss game because I'm really good friends with both head coaches, just to be quite candid with you. So I love Jared Parker. We still talk regularly. I love Charles Huff, or Huff Daddy as I call him. We still talk regularly. And both those teams are sitting at 7-4 and haven't had special seasons. So I spent too much time answering. I apologize for that. I'll shut up.
Tim, I want you to answer next.
I'd like to see Purdue win because it'd be the funniest of all the things that would happen. They play IU.
Okay.
That'd be fun. Um, Well, I'm separating from I want to cover a playoff game, so I want to see Miami lose because I want to see Miami lose, and then I would automatically cover a playoff game. But if we're taking that out of the equation, I think this loosely relates to covering a playoff game, but you can just pretend that the ratings stay the same. I'd like to see Auburn, Alabama lose in an Iron Bowl when it all comes down to all this, and that's where it happens. And then you could say, you know what? It does just mean more, and it means that the Gator Bowl is in your future.
I would love to see Auburn win, definitely, but not as strongly as I want Miami to lose because they are the world's worst front runners that count that counts their chickens ahead of time, and I think they could, and yeah, I'm looking
You'd be the
forward to
most
that.
fun. You'd be hilarious.
Well, that would be hilarious, and that's virtually impossible. So I don't.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about this? If you want to cover a playoff game, John Bryce and Tim Priester, you can't do the vote rooting for the underdog to ruin the other team's season in the Michigan Ohio State game. Like every year I ever have when I'm out on the West Coast, I just want the team that's undefeated to lose just to see everybody get mad. But this year, if that happens, you might not go for playoff games, so you don't want to see that happen because Michigan's going to take a giant leap forward if they beat Ohio State in that game. So I'm going to have to go ahead and root for a team that's undefeated and against. It's okay to root against Michigan too, but I'm saying I always root for the underdog in that game. With the most fun being Michigan in 2018 when they were on their so-called revenge tour and Dan Wolken had anointed them the best team that's ever played college football. And Ohio State put 60 burger on them. That was a fun one.
Yeah, and I should note, like, in addition to having friends on that pit staff, like I am very invested in the Tim Priester Pat Narduzzi pajama set. So I can't ignore that game.
I don't think, and I understand what you're saying, Tim, about the underdog in Michigan and Ohio State. I don't think I've ever wanted Michigan to win that game. I haven't. Under any
I
circumstance.
have. I'm trying to think of the most
I,
recent.
I
Well, last year I wanted them to win that game. I thought I was going to knock Ohio State out of the playoff.
That's true. That's true.
It's going to be fantastic.
You know where I'm coming from though when
Yeah.
I say that.
Yeah, I know. That's an underdog game for me, and it's not as.
No,
Generally, this whole weekend is about underdogs for me. The Thanksgiving
no way Michigan wins that game. No way.
Really? That's an interesting.
I'm just giving us.
There's no way Indiana.
I'm just giving us something to talk about next time when I'm wrong. So, no, I really don't. No way.
We can all agree Indiana would be the most fun, though, right? In college football, that would be the.
If you're from Indiana, yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We live in the atmosphere of this. I happen to know a lot of people that live down the Indianapolis area that they're Notre Dame fans.
Well, I like
who all if Purdue won that game.
Who doesn't want to see Signetti's, response to that negativity?
At this point, I want to see Ohio State and Indiana in the Big 12.
The Big 12 champion,
in the Big 10 championship. So, yeah, plus, let's not forget, like, even though she devoted a number of years to working tirelessly for Notre Dame, my wife is a Hoosier. So, let's.
I know a lot of Hoosiers, and I'm not going anywhere near that at all. I am against them.
All right, here's a heartwarming Thanksgiving story for all since you opened this trap door, O'Malley, and brought up Purdue, Indiana. So when Conzo Martin was the head basketball coach at Tennessee, and I was covering SEC spring meetings in Destin as I had to do every year. Each week, each year of those meetings, the SEC would pick one night and host a mixer where it's all journalists, their wives, welcome to attend with all administrators, coaches, their wives, etc. So I'm standing there talking to Conzo Martin, and Jess comes up, and I'm making the introductions, and she says, "Oh, Coach, fellow Big Ten." And he said, "Oh, really? Where?" And she goes, "IU." And he goes, "Oh, so does that mean you hate us like everybody else?" And without missing a beat, the most gracious Jess Bryce said, "Absolutely." So that is a true story from the pool deck of the Sandestin Hilton, and we shared a good laugh about it. And I followed up with, what you don't know, Coach, is that her dad actually went to Purdue, and she still said that to you.
Quanzo Martin, all comes back full circle. Purdue basketball player, Purdue 28.5 point underdog, the same as Northern Illinois at Notre Dame Stadium.
There you go.
Wrap it all up. Purdue taking them down. We'll
Happy
be back on
Thanksgiving, you
Wednesday.
turkeys.
We'll be back on, and the same as when Northwestern beat Notre Dame too. It's all happening. We'll be back Wednesday for a pre-Thanksgiving podcast, quite obviously, because we're not going to have it on Thanksgiving. We could have a third one. Jack, do you want to have one on Thanksgiving too? Probably not. No, I think we're out of that one. So for Tim Priester
No.
of Irish Illustrated, for John Bryce of Football Scoop, and for Jack Freeman behind the camera, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching and listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.